Before we begin, remember, this is a fictional story crafted from imagination, not reality. All characters are adults, and every relationship depicted is consensual. This is a space for dark romance, where shadows and desire intertwine. Step carefully and enjoy the story. The tequila burned. I was on my third shot when the velvet box hit the table. I didn't look up. Open it. His voice made my skin prickle. Silk over gravel. Money and menace. I raised my eyes slowly. The man across from me wore a white linen suit and a dive bar where everyone else wore wife beaters and regret. Dark eyes that had seen too much. A scar running temple to cheekbone. Someone had tried to kill him and failed. He was smiling. "I don't know you," I said. "Luca Vitali." He didn't offer his hand. "Open the box, Solana." My real name. In his mouth. I should have run. Instead, I flipped open the velvet box. The ring inside could have bought this entire neighborhood. "You're insane," I said. "Engaged." He leaned forward. "As of 10 seconds ago. Put it on." "I'm not." 3 men just walked through that door. His smile never wavered, but something dark moved behind his eyes. "Russian mob. They're here to put 2 bullets in my skull and 1 in whoever's sitting with me. You have 5 seconds to decide if you want to live or die." I looked at the door. 3 suits, faces like tombstones, hands moving toward their jackets. 4 seconds. "Why me?" My voice came out steady, surgeon steady. "Because you're drinking tequila at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday in the worst bar in Miami. Because that means you've already survived something that should have killed you." His hand moved across the table, slow, deliberate. And survivors know how to lie when it counts. 3 seconds. The men were 10 feet away. 2 seconds. My hand shook as I reached for the ring. 1 second. I slid it on. Luca's hand closed over mine like a vice. He pulled my knuckles to his mouth, kissed them, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "She said yes." The Russian stopped. "Now laugh," Luca whispered against my skin, "like I just told you the filthiest thing you've ever heard. Laugh like you love me. Laugh like your life depends on it." It did. I laughed. The laugh came out wrong, too sharp, too manic, but Luca pulled me closer, his thumb stroking the inside of my wrist where my pulse hammered. "Smile," he breathed. "They're counting your heartbeats." The tallest Russian stopped at our table. 50, gray temples, eyes like a frozen lake. "Vitali." "Konstantin." Luca didn't stand, didn't let go of my hand. "I'm a little busy." "I can see." Konstantin's gaze moved to me, slow, surgical, looking for the crack in the performance. "Congratulations, your uncle will be surprised." My uncle can choke on his surprise. The air went arctic. I felt Luca's fingers tighten on mine. Once, twice. Morse code. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't run. "Careful, Luca." Konstantin smiled. No warmth, all teeth. Men who disrespect family don't live long enough to start new ones. Is that a threat? Advice from a friend. We're not friends. Not yet. Konstantin's hand landed on Luca's shoulder, squeezed. But perhaps your lovely fiancé will make you wiser. Perhaps she'll teach you that some debts can't be paid with pretty words." He walked away. The other 2 Russians followed. I tried to pull my hands back. Luca's grip was iron. "Not yet. They're watching from the parking lot." "Who the fuck are you?" "The man who just saved your life." "You didn't save anything. You used me as a human shield." "Yes." No apology, no shame, just those dark eyes pinning me in place. I did. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the ring in his face. I wanted... "How much do you owe?" My blood stopped. "What?" "Medical debt. Your mother. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. The hospice care insurance won't cover. The experimental immunotherapy trial in Zurich that cost $90,000 per round and might buy her 6 more months." He tilted his head. "You're $340,000 short. You sold your apartment. You're living in your car. You've been picking up double shifts for 11 months and you're still drowning." I couldn't breathe. "How do you know?" "I know everything about everyone in this city." He released my hand, slid a phone across the table. "Check your bank account." I stared at him. "Check it, Solana." My hands shook as I opened the app. The balance made me dizzy. $340,000, deposited 14 minutes ago. What the fuck is this? "A down payment." He leaned back. 6 weeks. That's all I need. Wear the ring. Come to family dinners. Smile at my uncle. Convince them you're in love with me. Convince them I'm leaving the business to start a life with you." "Are you? Leaving?" "I'm trying not to die." His smile was a knife wound. "There's a difference." "And after 6 weeks?" "Your mother gets the treatment. You go back to your life. I disappear. We never see each other again." "And if they figure it out?" He didn't answer. "Luca, if your family realizes I'm fake, what happens to me?" His jaw tightened. "Then you become a problem they need to solve. Permanently." I should have walked out. I should have thrown his blood money back in his face. Instead, I looked at the number on my screen, the number that meant my mother might live, and said, "I have conditions." His eyes flashed, something like respect. "I'm listening." "No lies, ever, between us. Done. I keep working. My patients come first. Done. And if this goes sideways, if your psychotic family figures it out, you get me out. You don't leave me to die cleaning up your mess." He stood, moved around the table, crouched in front of my chair so we were eye level. "I won't let them touch you," he said quietly. "I'll put a bullet in every person who tries. I'll burn my entire family to ash before I let them hurt you. That's not a promise, Solana. That's a fact." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. 6 weeks, I whispered. 6 weeks. He pulled a second phone from his jacket, handed it to me. "Encrypted, untraceable. You only call me on this. You don't tell anyone about this arrangement. Not your best friend, not your mother, not the checkout girl at Publix. You tell no one, or we both die. Understand?" I nodded. "Say it." "I understand." "Good." He stood, offered his hand. "Now let's go meet my family. And Solana?" "What?" "When my uncle asks how we met, you tell him the truth. Every detail. People lie by omitting. They trust the truth when it sounds too stupid to be fake. I took his hand. The ring felt like a noose. The Vitali compound looked like a Tuscan villa had violently colonized Coral Gables. 20-foot walls, iron gates, armed men who didn't bother hiding their guns. "Smile," Luca murmured as we climbed marble steps. "Uncle Matteo is watching from the balcony, second floor, left window." Which uncle is Matteo? The one planning my funeral. The door opened before we reached it. A woman, 60s, elegant black dress, pearls, eyes like chips of obsidian. "Luca." Her voice could have frozen fire. "You brought a guest." "I brought my fiancé." He pulled me close, possessive, practiced. "Solana, meet Aunt Gianna. She poisoned my father." Gianna smiled. "Twice. He survived both times. Strong constitution, your father." "Shame about the stroke." "Such a shame." We walked into a dining room designed for Roman emperors. Crystal chandeliers, frescoed ceiling, a table that could seat 40. 6 chairs were occupied. Luca made introductions. Uncle Matteo, 50, silver hair, smile like a shark. Uncle Sal, older, quieter, hands scarred from decades of violence. Cousin Nico, 30, pretty, cruel. Cousin Lucia, 25, watching me like a cat watches a wounded bird. And at the head of the table, Nonna Vitali, 80 years old, 5 feet tall, built like a knife. "So," she said, "this is the girl." "This is Solana." Luca pulled out my chair. "My future wife." "We'll see." Nonna Vitali's eyes were surgical. "Sit." Dinner was served by silent staff. I counted 5 courses before I stopped counting. "How did you meet?" Uncle Matteo asked, cutting into veal that had never seen the inside of a grocery store. "A bar," I said. "How romantic." Matteo's smile didn't move. "Young love." He walked up to me, put a ring on my finger, and told me we were engaged. Very romantic. Silence. Every eye on me. Then Gianna laughed, sharp, delighted. "I like her." "Of course you do," Luca said. "She's the first woman I've brought home who isn't terrified of you." "She should be." I met Gianna's eyes, held them. "I've held a man's heart in my hands while it was still beating, Mrs. Vitali. I've told mothers their 8-year-old died on my table. I've worked 30-hour shifts with no food and no sleep and kept trauma victims alive through sheer stubbornness." I picked up my wine. "What exactly should I be afraid of?" Luca's hand found mine under the table, squeezed. "Thank you." Nonna Vitali set down her fork. "You're a surgeon." "Trauma, St. Joseph's." "My grandson is not a good man." "I know. He has killed people." "I've saved people. Maybe we balance out." The old woman stared at me for 10 seconds. Then she smiled. "You'll do," she said. "You'll do nicely." Uncle Matteo's expression went dark. We didn't go back to my car. Luca drove me to a penthouse in Brickell, all glass, all water views, all money that smelled like blood. "This is where you live?" I asked. "This is where I hide." He poured 2 whiskeys, neat. "There's a difference." I took the glass. "Tell me everything, now." "My family runs the Port of Miami, shipping, Import-export. Some of what moves through those warehouses is legal. He stared out at the city lights. Most isn't. Drugs? Drugs, weapons, occasionally people. He said it like he was reading a grocery list. Uncle Mateo wants to expand into fentanyl, mass production, distribution up the East Coast, billion-dollar operation. And you said no. I said I wanted out. He said I didn't have a choice, that I'm a Vitali, and Vitalis don't retire, they die. He turned. 3 months ago, I contacted the FBI. My hand went numb. You're an informant? I'm a dead man walking who's trying to take his entire family down before they kill me. The engagement is cover. If I'm leaving to start a family, I'm not a threat. I'm just done. And after 6 weeks? Witness protection. New name, new city, new life. His voice went flat. You go back to yours. Your mother gets treatment. You forget I exist. And if they figure it out? He didn't answer. Luca. Then you die, Solana. Quickly if you're lucky. Slowly if Mateo wants to make a point. He crossed to me. Close. Too close. That's why you can't tell anyone. That's why you have to be perfect. One mistake, one slip, and they'll cut you apart to see if I told you anything useful before they cut me apart for betraying them. I should have been terrified. I was, but I was also angry. You should have told me this before you put that ring on my finger. Would you have said yes? No. Exactly. He stepped back. I needed you desperate enough not to ask questions. I needed you. You needed a prop. My voice shook. A disposable prop. At first, he ran a hand through his hair. For the first time, he looked tired. But then you looked my aunt in the eye and didn't flinch. You made my grandmother smile. You... He stopped. You're better at this than I expected. Because I'm a surgeon. I perform under pressure. Because you're a survivor. Something in his voice made me look up. He was watching me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. I have conditions, I said. New ones. Tell me. You teach me everything. Every family member, every business deal, every danger sign. I don't walk into that house blind again. Done. And you tell me the truth. All of it. When the FBI is moving, when the danger is real, when I need to run. Solana. Every truth, Luca. Or I walk right now and you can watch Mateo kill you alone. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Every truth, he said. Starting with this one. I won't let you die for me, no matter what happens. You live, that's the only thing that matters. Why? Because you remind me what it's like to talk to someone who isn't calculating how to kill me. He smiled, sad, broken. And I haven't felt that in 10 years. Week 3, the trap closed. I was leaving St. Joseph's after a 14-hour shift, 3 gunshot wounds, 1 stabbing, 2 MVAs, when the black SUV pulled up. Not Luca's car, different plates. Uncle Mateo stepped out. Every instinct screamed, run. I didn't. Dr. Reyes, Mateo smiled. Walk with me. I'm tired. I insist. I walked. He guided me toward the parking garage, away from cameras, away from witnesses. My nephew speaks very highly of you, Mateo said. Very highly. That's nice. He paid off your mother's medical debt 3 days ago. $340,000. 1 wire transfer. My heart stopped. That was generous of him. That was suspicious. Mateo stopped walking. turned to face me. Because Luca has never spent that kind of money on anyone. Not his last girlfriend, not his favorite cousin, not even his dying father. His eyes went dead. So I ask myself, what kind of woman inspires that kind of devotion in 3 weeks? What kind of woman makes a man like my nephew forget himself? Maybe he loves me. Maybe. Matteo stepped closer. Or maybe you're helping him do something he shouldn't. Maybe you're his exit strategy, his cover story, his liability. You're wrong. Am I? His hand touched my shoulder, light, threatening. Because if I'm right, if I find out you're part of whatever he's planning, then that debt comes back. And your mother loses more than money. She loses her daughter, slowly, painfully. Do we understand each other? I couldn't breathe. Yes. Good. He released me. Enjoy your engagement, doctor, however long it lasts. He walked away. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. I called Luca on the encrypted phone. He knows, I said. What did he say? I told him. Every word, every threat. Silence. Luca? I'm ending this, tonight. You take off the ring. I wire you the full amount for your mother. We're done. No. Solana. I said no. I gripped the steering wheel. You promised me 6 weeks. We're at 3. We finish this. He threatened your mother. He threatened my mother because he's scared. My voice shook. If he thought we were real, he wouldn't need to threaten me. He's testing us. And if we fold now, he'll know he was right. He'll know you're planning something. Then we both die. Or we double down. I started the car. Where are you? The penthouse, but I'm coming over. We're going out, somewhere public. Somewhere his people will see us and report back. My knuckles were white. And we're going to sell this so hard he chokes on his suspicions. Why? Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because I'm tired of men like your uncle thinking they can control my life with threats. I pulled onto the highway. And because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, I started caring whether you live or die. So we're finishing this. Together. The line went quiet. Then, Solana? What? When this is over, when I'm in witness protection and you're back to your life, I want you to know something. What? You're the bravest person I've ever met. I hung up before he could hear me cry. Luca took me to Ocean Drive, prime real estate for being seen. Outdoor seating, tourists with cameras, Matteo's people at 3 different tables pretending not to watch. Smile, Luca murmured. We're madly in love. I know the script. But when he reached across the table and took my hand, something shifted. His thumb traced circles on my palm, slow, deliberate. Not for the cameras, for me. Thank you, he said quietly, for not running. Don't thank me yet. I mean it. Most people would have run screaming after Matteo's little performance. I'm not most people. No. His eyes held mine. You're really not. The waiter brought champagne we didn't order. Compliments of the gentleman at table 7, he said. Table 7, one of Matteo's men. How generous, Luca said. He poured 2 glasses, raised his. To my brilliant, beautiful, utterly terrifying fiancé. To not dying in the next 3 weeks. We drank. When Luca set down his glass, his expression had changed. I need to tell you something. What? The FBI is moving in 2 weeks, not 6. They moved up the timeline. My blood went cold. Why? Because Mateo's fentanyl shipment arrives in 12 days. If they don't seize it then, it hits the streets. Thousands of people die. They can't wait. And you? Witness protection activates the night of the raid. I disappear. Forever. And me? You go home. You're clean. The FBI knows you're just cover. You won't be charged with anything. That's not what I asked. My voice shook. What happens to me when your family realizes I helped you betray them? He looked away. Luca, they won't hurt you. I've made sure of it. The FBI will have people watching you for 6 months. Anyone comes near you, they'll what? Arrest them? Your family kills witnesses inside federal prison. You think surveillance is going to stop them? I'll make sure. You won't be here. I pulled my hand back. You'll be in Idaho or Montana or some random suburb with a new face and a new life, and I'll be here, waiting for your uncle to put a bullet in my head because I helped you destroy his empire. That won't happen. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. He stood, threw cash on the table. Come with me. What? Come with me. Witness protection, new identities, new lives. Together. I stared at him. You're insane. I know. He pulled me to my feet. I know I'm insane. I know we've only known each other 3 weeks. I know this is the stupidest thing I've ever said. His hands framed my face. But I don't want to disappear without you. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd just asked. Luca, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Please. Before I could respond, gunfire erupted. Luca tackled me to the ground as bullets shredded the table, screaming, running, blood on white tablecloths. Stay down, Luca shouted. He pulled a gun from his ankle holster, fired 3 times. One of Mateo's men dropped. More gunfire, from everywhere. FBI, SWAT, Mateo's people, all converging. Luca dragged me behind a planter. Listen to me, he said, blood on his face, not his. The FBI is here. They moved early. When the shooting stops, you tell them you're a civilian. You tell them I kidnapped you. You tell them, shut up, Solana, shut up and listen. I grabbed his face. I'm coming with you. What? Witness protection, new life, whatever insane plan you have, I'm in. You don't mean that. I held your hand for 3 weeks and lied to murderers. I looked your psychotic uncle in the eye and didn't flinch. I chose you over safety every single day. Tears on my face. I mean it more than I've ever meant anything. Sirens, helicopters, the world closing in. Luca kissed me. Hard, desperate, real. When he pulled back, he was smiling. You're going to regret this. Probably. I'm a terrible bet. I know. I love you. I froze. What? I love you, Solana Reyes. I've loved you since you laughed in that bar and saved both our lives. I've loved you through every dinner, every lie, every moment of this insane charade. His thumb brushed my cheek. And I'll love you in whatever life comes next, if you'll have me. The FBI breached the restaurant. Agents everywhere, weapons drawn. Luca raised his hands. Luca Vitale, I'm your informant. Don't shoot. They cuffed him anyway. One agent turned to me. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "No." "We need to get you checked out. Paramedics are—" "I'm going with him." The agent blinked. "Ma'am, he's under arrest." "I'm his fiancée. I'm going with him. And if you try to stop me, I will make your life a bureaucratic nightmare." I stood, walked to Luca, took his cuffed hands in mine. Where he goes, I go. The agent looked between us. Then he radioed someone. 30 seconds later, "She's cleared. Witness protection approved for 2. Luca started laughing. "What's so funny?" I asked. "You." He kissed my forehead. "You're the most terrifying person I've ever met." I'm a trauma surgeon who just agreed to fake her own death and disappear with a mob informant. Terrifying is relative. Fair point. They loaded him into an SUV. I climbed in after him. As the door closed, I looked at the ring on my finger. "I need a different ring," I said. "What?" "This one costs more than a house. If we're starting over, I want something real. Something that costs what normal people spend." "Like what?" "Surprise me." He smiled. "Deal." Epilogue, 6 months later. The beach house was small. 1 bedroom, wooden porch, sand dollars on the windowsill. I sat on the porch swing watching pelicans dive. A different ring on my finger now. Silver, simple. Engraved inside with coordinates. The dive bar where we'd met. "Coffee," Luca said, handing me a mug. His hair was longer now, beard growing in, scar still visible. Different name on his driver's license. Same eyes. "Thanks." He sat beside me. "Regret it?" "Which part?" "All of it. The trial, the media circus, leaving your entire life behind, becoming Claire Bennett instead of Solana Reyes." I thought about it. I thought about my mother, alive, in remission, living in Arizona under her own new identity. I thought about Mateo, life sentence, no parole. I thought about the tiny clinic where I worked now, stitching up fishermen and tourists instead of gunshot wounds. "No," I said. "I don't." He kissed my temple. "Good." We sat in silence as the sun rose over the Gulf. I had walked into a bar 6 months ago to drink away my grief. I'd walked out, engaged to a stranger who put a ring on my finger and told me we were both about to die. And somehow, impossibly, I'd found what I didn't know I was looking for. A life worth living, a man worth saving, a future worth fighting for. The ring caught the morning light. I smiled and did not look back. The end. If you liked this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. See you in the next one.